Thank you so much. The best start of a Congress. We will go on with the Minister for Climate, Development and Building, Martin Lidegaard, who has also a genuine interest in not only global climate aspects, but also how it relates to reproductive health care. Please, Minister.
Your Royal Highness, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Danish government, I would also like to welcome you to Copenhagen. We are happy and we are honored to have you here. Now, you might ask yourself, what on earth is the Minister for Climate, Energy and Buildings doing at your conference? But let me be quite frank. I am here for two reasons. One is that climate change is the single largest threat against human reproductive health. And the second reason is that you are a part of the solution, and I'm here to ask you to play your part. The world is growing. As you will know, in 2050 we will reach 9 billion people on this planet, and it will be 10 billion in 2100. 10 billion people using resources, emitting CO2, and increasing global warming. As health professionals, you have a vital part to play when it comes to women's reproductive rights, family planning, and contraception. When we fight climate change, we tend to focus on the next 10 years. That is when our global emissions of CO2 will have to peak if we should reach the 2 degrees Celsius target and limit the most devastating consequences. But climate change is not done after 10 years. We still have a task to perform, and here family planning is essential in reaching our climate targets, just as it is for women's rights, as we heard, and for development. And the importance of your work in this field cannot be overestimated. And I want to thank you full-hearted for your contribution. But I will also argue that your job is not done by that. It's also a fact that the climate challenge is not only lying with the 10 billion people, but also, and maybe even more, with the growing middle class, people like ourselves. In the last 3 decades, the global middle class has grown with 1 billion people. It's a tremendous success. 1 billion people which has been taken out of absolute poverty. But as a result, commodity prices have increased significantly since the turn of the century, and global warming has increased. Talking about commodity prices, are you aware that during the 20th century, the commodity prices of the world, water, food, energy, metals, have actually decreased more or less constantly in the whole 20th centuries. But in the last 10 years, the global commodity prices have increased more than they decreased the last 100 years. So today, the commodity prices are more or less the same as in year 1900, sorry. Fortunately. And in the next 25 years, we will not get 1 billion middle-class citizens more. No, we'll get 3 billion more. 3 billion people who will get their first car, buy their first house, and eat their first steak. That is good for their health, but it is bad for our common climate if we can't make the next century's growth more intelligent than we did the last. A growing middle class means a growing consumption of energy and a growing emissions of greenhouse gases, which will cause more climate change, which will means more health problems for more people. I would also like to give you a concrete example. Let us say that a woman has just gotten pregnant. I will call her Sarah, but the name could be Palmyra as well. Sarah will bring her child into a warmer world, and not only in a good way. When global temperatures rise 2 degrees Celsius, Twice as many people will die from heat strokes. And WHO estimates that 140,000 people already die from global warming every year by ills such as diarrhea, malnutrition, malaria, and dengue fever. By 2030, malaria will increase from 300 million to affect 470 million people every year. By 2080, dengue fever will affect an additional 2 billion people, and pregnant women are the most exposed. Sarah lives within 60 kilometers of the sea, along with more than half of the world's population. For every one drought in the past, there will be 10 to 20 more in the future. In some African countries, less rain means only half the crops already by year 2020, in 7 years. Sarah runs a risk of malnutrition, anemia, or lack of iron, which kills as much as 1 in 5 women during childbirth. In Lima, the capital of Peru, the people will have to make do with half of their normal supply of water because the glaciers melt. On a global scale, more than 1 billion people lack access to clean water already. As the warmer weather makes the drought last longer, Sarah will have to walk further to find clean water. 90% of diarrhea is due to dirty water and bad sanitation. She won't have time for school, and so she won't learn when to go to see a doctor, and she might wait until it's too late. Eclampsia is responsible for 16% of mothers dying during child labor, and it doubles the risk of children dying in the womb. After the drought comes the flood. The risk of coastal flooding will increase tenfold for Sarah. So that is the story of Sarah and climate change. And obviously, human reproduction influences the challenge of climate change, and you have a central part to play, as I mentioned. But as the story of Sarah shows, is also the other way around. A global rise in temperatures is the single largest threat against human reproductive health. And here your role is even greater. You can give Sarah the treatment she needs. You can give Sarah the health education she needs. You can give Sarah the adaptation advice she needs. And even more importantly, you can also give Sarah the knowledge she needs about climate change. You can give Sarah the advice she needs about climate-friendly behavior. And you can give Sarah and all the other of us the choice she needs to act in her own and our common interest. My brother is a doctor, and he's actually here today. I know the authority that doctors have, and I wish as a politician that I had it too. We could use some of that authority when negotiating in the UN, when talking to industry, or when convincing the public. As a Danish politician, it is hard for me to understand why it has to be so difficult. As you might know, in Denmark, we are set to be completely fossil fuel free by 2050. Already in 6 years, 50% of our power will emerge from renewables, 50% from wind, and 70% from renewables in total. We will use less energy while producing more, and we will do it with electricity prices, excluding tax, below the European average, with economic growth and support from the business community in Denmark, with steady job creation and care for our planet. It is doable. Ladies and gentlemen, we see the symptoms of climate change every day. We know the cure by heart, and we have the medicine at hand. As doctors, you are everywhere, and people listen when you speak. People respect what you say, and sometimes they even do what you tell them to do. I urge you, let us battle climate change together. Please ask people to cut down on fossil fuels and promote resource efficiency. Let it be what the doctor ordered. Thank you.